Okay, so we've seen with time series plots that we have a lot of fluctuations. Those are those up and down, the peaks and the troughs. So with those fluctuations, it's a bit hard to see if there's an underlying trend. What's happening in the long term with our data, with our sales. So what we want to do is a process called smoothing. So it's smoothing out the data, it's smoothing those fluctuations so that they're not as strong, so that we might be able to see if there is an underlying trend happening. So there's two ways that we look at that. We can look at that using a method called moving mean or moving median. First off, we're going to look at moving means. So this is what it sounds like. We get our data and we find the mean of it. So here I've got examples of 3 moving mean and 5 moving mean. This is from the book. So what we're doing here is you can see with this 3 moving mean, I've got data from January, February and March. I then find the average, I mean them together to get 9.3. So that's the mean of January, February and March. Now, looking at this, you think, well, okay, the mean of the months, that middle point almost, is February. Of the 3 months, the middle point is February. So that 3 moving mean is centered, that's the phrase we use, centered at February. So that 3 moving mean data point for February is 9.3. Now note here, we don't get a 3 moving mean point for January. That's because we can't go back to the previous year. We haven't got that data. So here we might lose that January data point, but we've got there the data point for February. Then we do the process again. We get the data for February, March and April, and we can see there, added them all together, divide by 3, get our mean of 7.7, which is centered at March, which is the mean of February, March and April. So that's 3 moving means. So that's using 3 data points. Now, our other method is that I show here is 5 moving mean. So I take the data from January, February, March, April, May, 5 months worth of data, and then I find the mean of those. Now the mean of those months of January, February, March, April, May is March. So this data is centered on March. And then we do our process for finding the average and we find it to be 11.0. Notice that we can't then find a 5 moving mean data point for January and February. The first one we can find it for is March. Then again, for our next data point we can find, which is centered at April, I find the data for February, March, April, May, June. And then I put it all together and we come up with our mean of 12.6. So we can have 7 moving mean points. It can be any number really. So this is the process we go through if we're finding an odd number of moving means. So it's just that one step. So it's fairly straightforward. And this tends to be a calculator task. So something that we have to calculate. So you can see with the graph, with the time series plot here, the red is the original, the yellow is our 3-point moving mean data, and the blue is the 5-point moving mean. So we can see that yes, there's some data missing at the start and the end. But this, fluctuating time series has been smoothed. We still see some variation, but it's not quite as strong. So we can see if there's an underlying trend there. Sometimes there isn't a trend, like here, it's pretty straight. Now, with finding data points when we're finding even number of data points, so this is when we have 2 or 4 or 6, this is a 2-step process. So we've got to do 2 things. So I've taken the example from the book, but let's talk through it. We've got to smooth this data with the mean, but then we need to center it. So here you can imagine I've got, all the 7 days of the week. Here we've just got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If I want to, with 2 moving means, with centering, I'll take Monday and Tuesday data, and then I'll average it out. But, okay, that's still in between Monday and Tuesday, isn't it? Because the center of Monday and Tuesday is that midnight between. It's between them. It's not on one day or another. So I've got to do another calculation. I then have to look at Tuesday, Wednesday and find that average. Okay, so then we've got the middle between Monday and Tuesday, the middle between Tuesday and Wednesday. If I get those 2 values and average them or find the mean, that's then the center of those 3 days, which is Tuesday. So this is something I suggest when you do it, you write it out carefully in your book and you give yourself plenty of room, plenty of space to set it out so you can really see this centering effect. Now, that's with 2 pieces of data. We can also do it with 4. Now, here they haven't written it quite clearly. It would be good if they had put a line in here, so I'm going to do that. Very wonky line, but that's okay. So you can see, alrighty, we've got January, February, March, April. We've got those 4 months, and then we've got the data here, which is centered between February and March. So we still haven't quite, it's not centered on a month, and it has to be centered on a month or a day, whatever we're talking about. It has to be centered on one of these real time values. So then I go to my second step, which is going, okay, I'll get February, March, April, May, and find the center for that, which is between March and April. Using between March and April and using between February and March and between March and April, I then get my data that is centered on March. So it is this 2-step process. Again, I suggest you do it a few times and setting it out carefully in your workbook.